Good evening. By the grace of Empress Nicholas and Alexander, you're watching GBC News. These are today's headlines. His Majesty the Emperor has officially opened the Curia at this year's plenary session. During his address, he outlined the government's new agenda, emphasising reforms to the Cabinet, the Curia, the Judiciary, and other constitutional organs. For the first time in nearly a decade, Georgetown Palace has announced the proclamations of Cecilia Dives and Eloise Marino as non-imperial duchesses. The Prime Minister's appointment is expected to take place as soon as she leaves office in 2035. President Lindbergh fled the Nordic Union earlier this week after being ousted by the opposition. This followed a series of violent protests in Stockholm, Oslo and Helsinki, which ultimately led to the collapse of the long-term Communist Party government, which had led the country for nearly 70 years. His Majesty the Emperor officially opened the Curia at this year's plenary session, marking the beginning of the year for the Senate. In his address, His Majesty laid out the government's agenda for 2033. The speech focused on several key areas of reform. It highlighted plans to overhaul the cabinet, aiming to streamline decision-making processes and ensure greater efficiency in governance. The Curia, the highest legislative body in the empire, will also undergo significant restructuring to improve its responsiveness and transparency. His Majesty also emphasised the need for judicial reform in response to last year's Canada corruption scandal, which also heavily influenced the High Court. Later on during the session, the Senate elected Dominic O'Reilly, the Senator for Germania Inferior, as the new Speaker, succeeding Louis Moreau, who had been removed from the position just a few months prior. In a historic move for the first time in nearly a decade, Georgetown Palace has proclaimed Cecilia Dives and Eloise Marino as non-imperial duchesses. A non-imperial duke or duchess is a title bestowed upon individuals who are not members of the imperial family, but have earned the distinction through notable achievements or influence. Unlike imperial dukes and duchesses, who typically inherit their titles through imperial lineage, non-imperial titles are granted based on merit, accomplishments, or high social standing. It is understood that the Emperor made these appointments based on his family's close relationship with the House of Dives and the House of Marino over the year. Georgetown Palace confirmed that the Prime Minister's appointment is set to take place in 2035, following her departure from office. Turning to tonight's main story, the United Nations Security Council is currently convening to discuss the recent events in the Nordic Union, just 2 days before the Nordic Constitution is set to be amended to restore the original order of the Nordic Union, before the communist regime came to prominence. President Lindbergh, who had led the country since 2024, allegedly fled on Wednesday to the Soviet Union, where he is reportedly being granted political asylum. Let's speak to Giorgio Amoruso, who is currently in Stockholm. Giorgio, in the last hour or so, the Nordic envoy to the UN has repeated again that the Nordic Union will cut all contact with the Soviet Union, the Warsaw Pact, and the IPSS by Sunday. What is your reaction to the restatement on that position?
Thank you, David. Yes, this move is certainly going to have some severe consequences for the Nordic Union's relationship with Moscow, especially if implemented in full, obviously. This includes their complete withdrawal from the Warsaw Pact and the international proletariats of social states.
Do you think there's any chance, with less than a week to go, that this might not happen given the Central Bloc's leadership is strongly supportive of this landmark decision?
As I mentioned earlier, the consequences will be dire if the separation goes ahead without Soviet economic and military support. The Nordic Union will hear the sole responsibility of sustaining its economy, particularly in terms of foreign trade. If they don't negotiate a failed compromise with the Soviet government, the Union might have to look at alternative frameworks altogether, bypassing both the Warsaw Pact and the IPSS.
Could you elaborate a little more on what the Nordic Union currently receives from its ties with Russia? If all of that support ceases, where else can the Union go to fill the gap in economic aid and trade relations?
Certainly, David, the Nordic Union benefits greatly from its relationship with Russia in several critical areas. Economically, they receive significant subsidized, discounted materials, and obviously preferred trade agreements that support key industries, particularly manufacturing, energy, so for example like gas. On the military front, they depend on Russian weapon system and joint defense arrangements under the Warsaw Pact. And if this relationship ends, they'll probably need to find an alternative trade partners, and they will need to do it quickly, perhaps looking towards the Central Islamic Community or even beyond, like emerging markets in Asia or something.
What political impact will this have on the Nordic Union entirely? I mean, how will, how significant is this reform in terms of removing the Communist Party from power?
The new government plans to reverse the entire country system back to a pre-communist structure from before the 1970s. This means each member state will gain more autonomy. Norway, Sweden, and Denmark will obviously reinstate their monarchies, while Iceland and Finland will return to their old republican systems. These changes will also see the end of the Nordic Socialist Republics designation, with the states now be referred to as Nordic Sovereign Republic, or in the case of monarchies, Nordic Sovereign Kingdoms.
Giorgio, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for sticking around. My name is David Cohen. This is GBC News.